Before a ball had been kicked in the Championship this season, this was how the bookies predicted things would end up come May. They had QPR predicted to finish in 21st, Preston in 18th and Stoke in 15th, with all three of those sides deemed more likely to be relegated than promoted. However, fast forward to October and all three sides currently sit in the top 6. In today's video, we'll be taking a deeper look at QPR, Preston and Stoke, who I think have emerged as this season's early dark horses, whether or not those three sides are here to stay in the top 6 conversation, and why maybe a few people were overlooking them at the start of the season. If you do go to enjoy, make sure to drop a like, but without any further ado, let's jump in. So as things currently stand, this is what the Championship table looks like. We've got QPR in 6th, Stoke in 5th and Preston North End in 4th. Based on the points they've accumulated so far this season, if they were to maintain that between now and the end of the season, it would see Preston finishing on about 81 points and Stoke and QPR getting about 77. Now, obviously, everything that we discussed in today's video, it's worth prefacing with the fact that we are only 9 games into this Championship season and absolutely anything could happen between now and the end of the campaign. It's been well discussed how slow some of the other sides have started who we expected to be in the top 6 mix at the start of the season. Those sides could still come good and push, North End, Stoke and QPR out of this top 6 race, but with the vibes quite high at all three of these sides at the moment, I thought it was worth spotlighting them all for a video today. And we'll start out by going through the transfer activity of each club, because this is where I think all three of them did really quite well over the summer. QPR in particular, I think were given a lot of plaudits for the business that they did. Brought in quite a few high-profile names and for good prices as well. Obviously, quite early on in the window, they got that deal for Kwame Poku, beating off quite a lot of other Championship competition to his signature. Went down as a free transfer, but obviously they paid some compensation to Peterborough to get that deal done. Arguably the best bit of business they did all summer, though, was selling Charlie Kelman for the money they did to Charlton and then reinvesting that money into Richard Kone. And I think based on what we've seen from both players this season in the Championship, that was an absolute masterstroke by QPR, because I think that QPR realised that Kelman's value was at an all-time high after the brilliant loan spell that he'd had in League One last season, but having struggled to make it at QPR previously, with him only having a year or so left in his contract as well, that was the perfect time to cash in and to go and get Kone, considering all the other clubs that were interested. Brilliant bit of investment there. You then throw in some of the other deals that they managed to pull off over the summer, getting Koki Saito back, this time on a permanent basis. Another brilliant bit of business. Thought he looked really lively during his loan spell there last season. Obviously, Dembele had come in on a permanent basis. Burrell, who looks absolutely rapid up top as well, as another option. And then also playing the free agents market quite well with Mbengui coming in from Reading, Isaac Hayden from Newcastle, who'd previously had a loan stint there, and even someone like Reece Norrington-Davies, who's coming on loan from Sheffield United, came in under a bit of a cloud after he had a bit of a nightmare on the opening day for the Blades, but I think has looked really solid for QPR so far. Statistically, in terms of average match ratings, these have been QPR's top performing players so far this season. You've got Jimmy Dunn up there. Another great bit of business was getting him tied down to a new contract when it looked likely at one stage over the summer that he might be moving on. Obviously, you've got Liam Morrison in there who continues to be really consistent. Richard Kone, no surprise. But arguably their most improved player so far this season is Nicholas Madsen in midfield. Because I think that going back to last season, the money they spent on him, he blew hot and cold for me personally, and I think for a lot of QPR fans as well. But second season in English football, I think QPR fans are starting to see a bit of a different player here and someone who could be really influential for them going forward. Now, in terms of big summer transfer windows, there weren't many Championship clubs who had a bigger clear out of players than Preston North End over the summer, and I think this is where a lot of people were a little bit cautious with North End, because we avoided relegation on the last day of last season by the skin of our teeth. We did lose a lot of big name players, the likes of Ryan Ledson going out, Freddie Woodman, Emil Rees, even someone like a Ched Evans, players who have played a lot of football matches for Preston, all leaving in one window. But as a North End fan who was close to the club last season, and I think every North End fan would say this that watched the team last season, we were badly in need of this complete gutting of the squad. Heckingbottom mentioned it on countless times last season about mentalities and needing a freshness going into the new season, and it's felt like we've got exactly that with this summer transfer window. Now, don't get me wrong, there still were nervy North End fans coming into this season, myself included, because it was so much change at once. But considering we really did not spend a lot of money over the summer, I think we got a really good bang for our buck, considering all the names we brought in, how well some of these players have done and hitting the ground running. You know, our most expensive signing over the summer, Odluga Afai, coming in from Brighton, he's barely featured so far because of the form of our other defenders, which I think has been really promising. In terms of playing the free agents market, though, I think North End had an absolute blinder with some of these deals. Daniel Iverson on a free transfer is an unbelievable signing and a massive upgrade on Freddie Woodman from last season. Paul Valentin coming in from Sheffield Wednesday on a free. Another great bit of business. I think he's been a brilliant performer so far. Thierry Small, obviously there would have been a bit of compensation involved in that deal, but another top pickup. Michael Smith, who's looked handy, and even Vucevic as well, who I think quite a few fans had a few question marks over at the start of the season because we didn't know enough about him. He's been really solid as well. But undoubtedly, the area where North End did their best bit of business over the summer was in the loan market, and this is where I think our squad has seriously improved when compared to last season. You look at the incomings of Lewis Dobbin, Alfie Devine and Harrison Armstrong, all coming in on season-long loans from Premier League clubs. Instantly, they've raised the level in the rest of the squad. You look at someone like an Alfie Devine, for example, who I think has come in and been an absolutely brilliant creative spark in midfield, and his instant impact has meant that we've now got someone like Mads Frokjar, who last season would have been a guaranteed starter most weeks. He's now a bench player. That's the squad depth we're working with now. Dobbin's been really good, really fast, direct player, got a goal in him as well. And Armstrong, still in the early days of seeing him, but I really like what I've seen from him so far. Looks very composed on the ball. In terms of North End's top performers so far this season, statistically, it's been Jordan Story with the highest average match rate. And I think he's really benefited from a fire coming in and having that competition for his place. I think at points of last season and years prior, there have been points of the campaign maybe where Story's been a bit complacent because he's not had that competition beneath him, but he's been really solid so far. Lewis Gibson, a defender that I just can't praise enough. I think he's absolutely brilliant. For me, our best defender. Ben Whiteman, I think we've seen a huge improvement from so far this season compared to last season. And then you look at a lot of the new signings that we brought in. Thierry Small's been brilliant. Lewis Dobbin's been excellent. Daniel Everson, best goalkeeper in the Championship for me, although we'll speak about a very good one in just a minute. Alfie Devine and Paul Valentin as well, also among our top performers. So the vibes around Deepdale at the moment are really positive. And despite a lot of uncertainty over the summer with a lot of the players that we brought in, credit to the club, most of them have managed to hit the ground running. And then we get to Stoke City, who are probably one of the toughest teams to predict at the start of every season because, I mean, going back countless years now, Stoke always seem to be quite proactive in the transfer window. They always bring in loads of players every single summer, have a bit of a squad overhaul. You know, we can see how many incomings and outgoings they have every single season since they've been back down in the Championship. And this sort of strategy has never really worked for them previously, which is why I was a little bit, you know, had a bit of a question mark over them coming into this season because we've just seen gradual regressions from Stoke season upon season. But on paper, I think a lot of us agreed over the summer they had made some very good signings. Wouter Berger going out was obviously the big departure, but other than that, didn't really lose anyone that notable, I didn't think. But they were also quite proactive in remodelling the look of this side and just giving Mark Robins a little bit more to work with compared to the back end of last season when Robins had made Stoke quite a hard and tough team to beat, but definitely a side that was lacking that little bit of stardust. And so far this season, I think it's safe to say that they have added that bit of stardust with Sorba Thomas, who has been one of the Championship's top performing players in these first 9 matches. He's got 3 goals, 4 assists. Statistically, he's been Stoke's best performing player, but going off the underlying stats, been one of the best players in the Championship, full stop. In terms of chance creation, key passes we're looking at here, no player in the Championship has created more chances in these first 9 matches than Sorba Thomas. 25 chances created, and when you've got him on one side, you've got Manhoef on the other, who have both been on top form so far this season. Competent number 9 in the middle in Mbama, who has looked like a real handful. With the defensive structure that Robins was able to put in place towards the back end of last season, suddenly you've got a competent looking Stoke side, arguably the best and most well-balanced Stoke squad that we've had since they've been back down in the Championship. Now, one of the key things for me, if any of these sides are going to maintain this run for the top 6, is looking into their underlying stats, because 9 games in, underlying stats and data can be a little bit skewed, but over the course of a full season, I do think these sorts of things do eventually catch up with you, and this is where you need to be putting up good numbers, in my opinion. So in terms of chance creation, Stoke, Preston and QPR have all been about mid-table sides so far this season. Stoke have put up an XG of 11.2 in their opening 9 matches, Preston 10.3 and QPR 9.4. Now, interestingly, in terms of those XG numbers, QPR have actually been outperforming them, as have Preston, but Stoke have been underperforming them ever so slightly. I know in a few of Stoke's most recent matches, their fans have been a little bit frustrated about how wasteful they've been at times, and that is backed up by some of the stats here. My thing with Stoke, Preston and QPR at the moment is, if any of them want to finish in the top 6 come the end of the season, this is an area where I think all 3 will need to improve. Either you do that or you become an incredibly tough side to break down defensively. And speaking of those defensive numbers, there's really been nothing to separate all 3 this season. All Stoke, QPR and Preston are right next to each other, pretty much banging mid-table in terms of the XG they faced so far. But the real edge that both Stoke and Preston have had in this department is having 2 of the best goalkeepers in the Championship. So in terms of the best shot stoppers in the Championship, data-wise, both Victor Johansson and Daniel Everson rank as some of the best goalkeepers in the league in terms of this statistic. So post-shot expected goals minus the number of goals that have actually gone in. So goals prevented, basically. Johansson's been the best keeper in the Championship for this. Daniel Everson's been the 4th best keeper in the Championship. In terms of QPR, I think that Nardi has looked much more competent since he's come back into the side, and defensively in general, QPR have looked a lot better in that regard, because if we flip this table, the worst goalkeeper in the Championship by shot prevention is Joe Walsh, and I think that QPR have seen an improvement defensively since they flipped that keeper situation around. Now, for all 3 sides, I think it will be a crucial point of the season, these next batch of games. We've got 6 games coming up between now and the next international break in October, and if QPR, Stoke and Preston can all come out of this batch of next 6 games with anywhere from sort of 8 to 10 points to their name, I think they'll be looking pretty good going into that November international break. So in terms of QPR, they've got upcoming games against Millwall, Swansea, Derby, Ipswich, Southampton and Sheffield United before the next international break. Bit of a mixed bag overall in terms of fixtures. This run of 3 games here I think will be quite interesting, up against Ipswich, Southampton and Sheffield United. 3 sides who were fancied by a lot of people for promotion at the start of the season. How QPR fare in those 3 games in particular will really set the mood for them going into that November international break. For North End, there's no doubt we do have a very challenging group of matches coming up during this point of the season and the next international break. We've got West Brom, Birmingham, Sheffield United, Southampton, Swansea and Millwall to play. Really, there aren't any easy games in there whatsoever. I know Sheffield United are bottom of the Championship right now, but we expect them to improve after this international break under Chris Wilder. And under the lights on Friday night, yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Then games against West Brom, Birmingham, Southampton, none of those are easy. All sides who we expect to be up and amongst it at the top at the end of the season. And Swansea and Millwall, also tough matches as well. So once again for North End, if we come out of this group of 6 games here with anywhere from 7 to 10 points, I think it'd be a really healthy return. I'd say arguably out of all the sides currently deemed as the dark horses, we looked at QPR's fixtures and Preston's fixtures, between now and the next international break, Stoke arguably have the most favourable run. Don't get me wrong, they still have some tough fixtures in there. That game on the 8th of November against Coventry in particular could be an absolute cracker, but with the way Stoke have been playing so far this season, I think Wrexham's a winnable game. Millwall at the Den have been a little bit hit and miss. I certainly think Stoke can get something from, the games against Pompey, Bristol City and Oxford as well. That for me is not a bad run of games there for Stoke, and I would not be surprised if they're still in the top 6 come this next November international break based on those fixtures. But it's still early days, but I'd like to know in the comments down below if you support any of those sides. What have you made to your side's start to this season? Do you think it's too early to be tipped as a bit of a dark horse right now? And is there anyone in the bottom half of the Championship currently who you think could be deemed as a bit of a dark horse and will improve between now and this next November international break? Do let me know in the comments down below. Apart from that though guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.